Hell yeah. Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host Matt. Hey Matt.
Hey, Kat. Hey, everyone. How are you?
Well, Matt, this week has been a tough one in the entertainment world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And, I mean, I guess at some point, you expect that people might pass away, but does it seem to you like with celebrities that I don't know, like we just I just don't expect them to pass away, I guess.
Yeah, it's. I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, a lot of the people that, like, people we grew up listening to, and music and actors and stuff, I mean, they're all getting to be that age where, unfortunately, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and that sucks,
Yep.
because I mean, I guess in a way it's almost like your childhood and growing up period was so influenced by many of these people,
Yeah.
and it brings you to the reality, I think, that you're going to be one of those people, like your time is growing shorter also.
Yeah, I've thought about
That
that too.
and that also sucks.
Yep.
Eh, so we'll start, like, Malcolm Jamal Warner. Loved him. To me, like, he seemed just like the nicest person. And so the Cosby Show for me, it was fun and all of that. And I of course like Theo too, like all of them. They had their personalities,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really when he was older, when he was the resident. I watched that show, and like he grew into like a really fine adult actor. I mean, a lot of younger people, like people that are on TV shows when they're young, they don't necessarily stay in acting.
Right.
They have like a cute look or whatever, and then they go on to college or they go on to life, and it's not about that. But with him, like, I mean, he had a genuine talent, and he was so good on The Resident. And also, he was younger than us.
Yeah.
And I was floored. I could not believe it when I saw that. And, of course, then I knew, like, he's never going to be on this podcast as a guest, which I had, always hoped for. But I mean, then I think for me, bringing into it his daughter being there, and, they must have had a really special connection, and that reminds me of my dad. And so I think these deaths, like, they really just bring a lot of emotions to the forefront that you don't like necessarily try to think about as you're going through day-to-day life.
Right.
And then the next day it's Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. I mean, I know Ozzy's been sick for a while, and not that not that I was expecting it, but he had been fighting a lot of different illnesses, I guess, for a while.
But yet, doesn't it seem like like he would still be okay, like no matter what, he was gonna just be there.
Well, I mean, he just did his farewell concert, like, what was it, 3 weeks before or 2 weeks before?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I guess he knew his time was getting short.
Well, I mean, I will say that getting to do that concert probably was very meaningful to him.
Sure.
And I've often, wondered, like, is it better to know that you're dying, or just for it to happen. Because, one parent of mine did not know and the other one did. And, so I don't know what the answer is, but certainly if he had that feeling, being able to be on stage again must have been, I mean, like a full circle, like what you would want life to be like if you were Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, sure.
And, I took my son to Ozfest. So so he was generational, as
Mm-hmm.
many of these are, it's not just that we grew up with them, but a lot of other people too at different ages.
Yep.
Okay, and if that wasn't enough, then Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
wrestling. Y So, wrestling for me, we watched it, like, every weekend and
Mm-hmm.
on TV, but it was local, like, it came out of Knoxville,
Right.
and, in the family, there was those who thought it was real and, those who thought it was staged,
Mm-hmm.
but, it was interesting, and I liked the storylines and, sometimes the bad guy would flip to a good guy and
Yeah.
vice versa, so it was all that. But, my son, again, growing up, wrestling was big then when you had the WWE and the WWF and,
Yeah.
whatever, all the letters, and you had Hulk Hogan, and you had Andre the Giant, and you had I don't even know who else, but they were action figures. They were everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so so he was 71, and that's young when you think about how close we are to 71.
Well, yeah. I mean, who thinks about that?
Well, I did when, I mean, I did think that because he never looked old to me. I don't think we look old. And really 71 is not old. So again, 3 in a row like that was really hard, and it's just been a tough week like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to happen in threes, I guess.
Yeah, and so when 2 happen, I get very nervous about that, I'd have to
Yeah, you
admit.
never know.
I try not to be superstitious and those things, but, I mean, I'd be lying if I said it didn't cross my mind, like, "Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
know, who's the 3rd one or what's gonna happen?" And so, hopefully it's a long time before we have this conversation again of, people passing away, but, it was a tough week.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I mean, these things are gonna happen, so.
Well, the circle of life, so to speak, is that, there are always new entertainers and, they're gonna have their moment, and
Not that
like our guest
not that
today.
not that we could identify any of them. I think we talked about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, Scotty Hastings is our guest, and like he's had a really interesting journey. He was in the military,
Yep.
and we're gonna hear all about that story, but didn't he get a Purple Heart?
I'm pretty sure it did.
And, I mean, he went through a lot, and now he is taking those stories of things that happened to him and using it through music to reach people.
Yeah, it is an interesting story, and it's pretty cool. You know, I don't know that he was always into music, but we'll find out.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times it's some event that turns people, into feeling like they're a songwriter or that they must be. a musician, like, something brings that out in them. And usually the people we've interviewed, that's happened early on when a family member has put them in a talent show or,
Right. Yeah.
asked them to sing at church or those kinds of things. But, we just, it's always interesting to hear how it happened. Like, when did you know that this was going to be your career path? But
Well,
the title of his new release is Scars, and, that says a lot with just one word.
yeah. I mean, it could mean a couple different things.
Yeah, and I'm sure it probably does, like, when we hear about the songs and knowing he was from the military, it could be, like, physical scars, it could be emotional scars, it's
Yeah.
probably, a lot of different, as you said, types. And, do you think that, music that comes from personal experience is more interesting to you than, music that just is, like, inspired by one little line that you hear someone say or,
I mean, to
you know
me, it doesn't matter. I'm a fan of songwriting, good songwriting, and you know, it, it doesn't really matter where it comes from, just what the story it tells, I guess.
well, what if it doesn't, like, necessarily have a story? Like, just it's about the rhythm and
Like
that kind of thing.
a song like Barbie Girl or
Well, in the Barbie world is
yeah,
drama.
yeah. No. I mean, I guess there's been songs like that that don't have a story that are, interesting, but generally I gravitate towards the ones that do have a story.
Yeah, you remember, like, Louie Louie or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
nobody really knew what they were even saying,
I don't even know that they do now.
yeah, so, they're just fun songs that we remember like that, but the ones that really resonate with me usually are songs from that either come from the heart, this story, or I feel like it does,
Right,
because then, I relate to it in some way, and it's, like, just very, I'm like, "Oh, that's my story," or
right,
which obviously I, was not in the military, so but you can relate to scars, people can I think everyone can relate to
sure.
having some type scar, and so I think and didn't someone tell us that, like, one-word titles were the popular way to go? Like,
I don't recall that, but it's possible.
I it seems to me like someone said that, but, I like one-word titles, so I'm gonna say Scars is, thumbs up, just based on it's one word and it says a lot with one word.
Yep, I agree. Well, before we talk to Scotty, let's talk about next week's episode a little bit.
Okay, you do not want to miss this to the listeners. I'm super excited about it, but also, like, how in the world is that's what's going through my mind. We're gonna do we're gonna do an episode where AI is going to guide us through, what it's gonna be about, how we're gonna approach it.
Yeah, it'll kind of be like the random question generator type episode, if you remember that.
Yeah, and who could forget that? That was super fun and interesting and funny for sure.
Yep,
But
and your play is coming up. Is that
yeah,
next week or
2
2 weeks?
weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks from yesterday it opens.
Oh wow!
So, super excited for that too.
And you got Roots of the Bluegrass going on.
Roots of the Bluegrass, we have official, 10-minute winners and 10-minute play winners and getting ready to go into the one acts next week at the end of the week. And so it's a journey and it's this is a super creative period, I guess, for me, and a super busy period.
Yeah,
So,
lots
yeah.
going on. I may have an announcement of my own next week. We'll see.
Oh, like you're gonna be at the show? That kind of announcement?
We'll see.
Or
We'll see.
yeah. Well, will it be your own announcement or one that AI tells you?
No, it'll be my own.
Okay. Well, we are super like interested and fascinated by AI
Yes,
and
in fact, AI had a hand in helping me get to the announcement. Like what I've been talking to it a little bit about things. So
well, and so we have two different devices. Like I'll be using Chat GPT
yeah, and
and
I'm using Gemini with
yes,
Google.
so it's like one big brain, I'm sure, somehow, but
Yep.
we'll see we'll see what it tells us. And for those of you that have a fascination or curiosity about it, definitely tune in to next week's episode because I don't even know if that's ever been done before. We might be like groundbreaking.
Either that or it's going to be a horrible, horrible show.
Well, I did think about that for a brief second and then I thought, we've pulled all kinds of topics out and saved them from falling apart. So I feel like that we have the skill set now to be able to make it okay no matter what.
Sure. Let's go with that.
Yes, let's go with that. And now let's go with interviewing Scotty Hastings.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
I almost hit the end button.
Go ahead. Yes.
Scotty, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions. We're quite honored to have you as our guest today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, so you have a very interesting backstory, and so I want to start with that. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about where does your story begin? Like, where did you grow up, and what was early
Yeah,
life like?
yeah, absolutely. I grew up in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and I grew up. I had pretty normal childhood. I played sports. I've actually played baseball up until I decided to join the United States Army. And then when I joined the Army, I just wanted to be a part of something that meant something, so I joined the Army and got deployed to Afghanistan. And while I was in Afghanistan, I was shot 10 times. And
Wow,
by the grace of God, somehow I'm still here. And after my injury, I was lucky enough to find therapy in archery. I shot archery with the U.S. Paralympic team for years, like almost 6 years, and then COVID happened and the world shut down, and I needed a new therapy. I needed a new escape. I needed something to get out of my head, and music became that therapy. That's when I started learning how to play the guitar, and I started learning how to write songs, and I found an escape, and I found a therapy in music.
so when you were younger, you said you were playing baseball, and so you were athletic more so than musical at that point.
Absolutely. Music was not even a thought. I mean, I sang growing up, but it was more of it was more of just a thing for me to do as a hobby of mine that I did by myself. I sang in the car, I sang in the shower, but never in front of people. Never. I was terrified to sing in front of people when I was growing up.
So what were some of your favorite, music? What did you sing to yourself?
Oh man, I've listened to everything, but a lot of a lot of my musical taste is from the '90s. Like the '90s country scene was probably the best time for country music was in the '90s. And I grew up listening to Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is probably the person who made me fall in love with country music. And I have so many great memories of my dad and a Garth Brooks cassette and just listening to it on repeat over and over again.
Wow. And so you said that you started playing guitar. So did you play any instruments growing up or
I did not. It's funny. I actually went and tried to play an instrument. I went to two lessons, and then I was so frustrated after the second lesson. I was like, man, no one like girls like the guys who play sports anyhow. I do that anyhow. I don't need to learn how to play the guitar. And you know what? Honestly, I'm kind of glad that I didn't know how to play the guitar before my injury. I feel like learning how to play again after being injured, it would have frustrated me enough to where I wouldn't have wanted to try.
Interesting. So you wanted to be a part, you said, of something that meant something. So you joined the army. What was that experience like when when you first got deployed or even just when you first went to basic?
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. Anytime you go into the unknown, it's scary. But once you get into the life of the army and being around the guys, like it's amazing. You have the camaraderie, you have a team, you have friends that become brothers, and unlike any, you develop relationships unlike any relationships you'll ever have, and it's amazing. I miss the army a lot. I loved being a part of the army. I loved, being able to say that I was a part of that, and I loved being around my guys.
Did you like the structure of it? And I mean, like I see movies and things like that about it, and it looks like, why would anyone want to put themselves through like the terrible parts of it? Like, but you talk about the good part of, I think probably I can't understand the connection. I think you'd have to be a part of it to know how close that you become to the other people in your unit with you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, the structure is a huge plus too. I mean, the army is very easy. You're told what to do, when to do it, what to wear when you're doing it, and like when to be there. I mean, it's very very easy. The structure is very easy, but it's the relationships that you build that really outlast anything else. And that's the one thing that when you leave the military that you miss the most are the relationships.
So then you get deployed, and what is going through your mind at that point? Because that's a big change.
Yeah, it's a huge change, and I did the mistake of looking up where we were going beforehand. So it was, we went into the River Valley, which is the Kandahar area and Arghandab River Valley. That's the birthplace of the Taliban. So it's it was a lot of fighting all the time, and I knew that going into it. So when I got there, I would, of course, it's scary. I mean, you're scared, but you understand that you have training for this, and you understand that you have, the brothers behind you and beside you to make sure that you're going to make it out. And you just rely on each other and you rely on your training, really.
So what age were you, when you were in Afghanistan?
I was 22 when I was in Afghanistan. I turned 22 when I was in Afghanistan. It was, I was an old man in the army, which is crazy to think. When I joined the military in basic training, I was 21, is which is old for most people. And it's for most army, basic training people who join, it's usually 17 or 18. That's what was in there. So it was, everyone, especially in basic training, looked to me kind of for guidance, some way, shape, or form, because I had been through life a little bit more than they had. And I mean, 22. I mean, now that I'm 37, I look at me as a 22-year-old in Afghanistan, and I'm like, man, I was a kid. Like I was a child out there trying to fight for something that we were told to believe in.
So 10 times you were shot there. Was that like all in one episode or?
It was, yeah, it was all at one time.
Oh my
I walked up
gosh.
on a guy, yeah, yeah, I walked up on a guy who was hiding behind a wall, and he saw me, and he just started shooting, and I ended up getting ten bullets.
I mean, what what went through your mind at that point? I mean, I
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is, just I mean, you go through different phases. I mean, the first phase is just the pain. I remember how bad it hurt. I remember, just the sheer amount of pain that I was in. And then once you're on the ground and you're laying there and you're still in pain, you still feel it, but then the intrusive thoughts start creeping in. That's when you start thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out of this. And I don't know, like I know that I just got really messed up. I don't know how bad. I don't know what's going on. Like I know I can't move my arm. I know I can't move to my guys. Like I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of, unknown when that happens. And yeah, and then you just go from that to just trying to stay calm. The one thing in basic training that we did learn, and all the other classes that we learned that we went to before deploying, they always told us that shock is going to be the number one killer of a combat injury. So my my thought process was, okay, if I just stay calm, then maybe I'll make it through this. So I just did things to try to keep myself calm. I interacted with the guys and I joked with the guys and I tried to just be, very much as calm as possible in that moment. And I honestly, my guys saved my life, and my medics saved my life, and them understanding what I was trying to do when I was joking with them and making jokes and just trying to remain calm really is what saved me.
Wow. So, what was the extent of your injuries once? I mean, obviously you're still here, but I imagine 10 shots, you're not gonna be just like getting up and walking away.
Oh yeah, no, I still have nerve damage in my right hand where I was shot in the shoulder. I was shot in the brachial plexus, which is where all the nerves meet in your shoulders that go up into your brain, into your neck, and down into your arm. So I have nerve damage in my right arm still. Not only that, I get really bad headaches from time to time. I have a chunk of my hip that's missing completely. And I just have bullet fragments all over me and all throughout my body. And I'm lucky that it didn't hit any bones, which is incredible. I mean, that had that happened, it would have been a completely different thing. But yeah, I mean, I just got really lucky, and I had someone watching over me for sure. But it's yeah, I still deal with things, not only physical wounds and physical issues, but mental as well. PTSD, depression, anxiety. That's something that I very much still deal with and still fight through on a daily basis.
So, what was recovery like? How long did that take, and what was the
Yeah,
process?
I usually tell people that recovery is still happening. I mean, there's some things that are left that will be there forever. Like the nerve damage in my right hand, it'll be there forever. The PTSD, it'll be there forever. It's something that doesn't go away. I've just been lucky enough to be able to find something to help calm it a little bit. But the recovery process was hard. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to do everything left-handed instead of right-handed, which was so hard. I mean, I remember having to learn how to write again, and I had like a children's book that I would have to follow the dots and make a C or a D and learn the alphabet and learn how to write left-handed. It was very challenging. Very challenging.
Wow. I cannot imagine that. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, that's yeah, wow. First of all, Scotty, thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, how did you said you when COVID came around, you decided that you wanted to learn how to play guitar, and
Yes.
so you've only been at it for a few years now,
Yes.
and you have some nerve damage and stuff. So,
Mhm.
I mean, did it make it? I assume it made it harder for you to pick it up and learn how to play.
Yeah, and that's why I say I'm so glad that I didn't know how to play before, because I don't know any other way. Like the way that I learned is just the way that I learned. I feel like had I known how to play, and then trying to learn how to play with a hand that doesn't work all the way,
Yeah.
I think that it would have been so incredibly frustrating that I probably would have quit. So, I mean, it was for me, it was just something I felt like I needed to do and I wanted to do. When COVID hit, it was very quiet, and when it's quiet is when the demons knock the loudest. And
Yeah.
I needed something to get out of my head, and I had a guitar in the corner of my room, and one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to play this thing. Like, I know it's going to be challenging. I know it's going to require all of my focus, so I can get out of my head for a little bit and learn how to play this. I didn't, however, know how much of an obsession it would become for me, and how much of an outlet in that, yeah, and how much of an outlet and how much of an escape it would really bring me. I didn't know that going into it, but then once I learned, then it truly became an amazing escape that I could escape into for hours at a time during the day.
Yeah. So when you got back from Afghanistan, and you were just sort of healing and all of that, did you think about like, okay, well, what's next? And was music like a thought that you had at that point?
No, not at all. I thought about what was next. A lot of it, when you're healing and you're trying to figure out your new normal, there's a lot of moments where you're just like, "Dude, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do anything.
Right.
I mean, I'm now dealing with this new injury that I've never had before in my life. Like, I don't know how to live life like this. Like, what do I do? What does jobs look like? Like, what is that even? Like, how do I do this?
Right.
And I was just lucky enough that when I left Walter Reed, I went back to Fort Riley to be there when my guys got there, and I was lucky enough to find adaptive sports when I was at Fort Riley, and I found archery as an adaptive sport, and I mean, I found 7 seconds of peace. I was able to, right before I released that arrow, right before I released that shot, nothing in the world mattered. The PTSD, the depression, the anxiety, it all disappeared for 7 seconds. And I
Right.
lived for those 7 seconds at a time. So I would just shoot archery all day, and I would get, a little bit of an escape, a little bit of therapy from it. And then I slowly became better and better to the point of where I got recruited by the US Paralympic program,
Hmm.
and I traveled all over the country and shot archery for the US Paralympic program, and represented the United States in different archery tournaments and stuff like that. And it was, it became a job. I was able to make money off of it. The VA paid me as an athlete, so I was able to. I then was able to find a career.
Hmm. Interesting. So then so when you started playing guitar, when did you start songwriting?
Oh yeah, so I learned how to play G, C, E minor, and D. I figured that if I learned those four chords from all my research that I did were like the basic foundation of so many songs.
Sure.
And I was like, man, if I can just learn this, like I should be fine. So I learned those. I started learning songs that I grew up listening to, and then one day I was like, man, like I still have all these feelings and all these emotions and all these thoughts that I just want to get out. Like I want to put them somewhere.
Hmm.
And one day I decided that I wanted to write a song. I don't know what made me decide that. I just one day decided to. So I jumped on YouTube where I learned how to play the guitar, and I started learning how to songs are structured and how you go from a verse to a chorus and to a bridge and how it all comes together and it makes one thing.
Hmm.
And then I slowly just started, with the four chords that I had, I started writing a couple songs, and for me, they weren't even really songs. I mean, I look back at them now, and I'm like, man, this is just like word vomit. Like this is not a song, but for me, it was therapy. I was able to get these feelings and these thoughts and these emotions and put them somewhere else other than just eating me alive. I was able to put them somewhere, and they could live there and they could belong there. And it truly became a therapy for me to write songs.
So tell us about the first time you played in front of other people. I mean, that must have been
Yeah, man, it was weird. I had never played in front of people before, especially playing the guitar and singing. Uh,
right.
so I one day when COVID was, Nashville was shut down, but the outskirts of Nashville was like, man, we got to do this 6 feet apart thing because we're going broke. Like we can't
Yeah, yeah.
stay closed. So I went to Cookeville, Tennessee, at Red Silo Brewing Company, and
Hmm.
they had an open mic night. And I was like, man, why not? Like, why not just go and see what it's like? I don't have to put, my name on the list, but if I decide to, then cool, I will. So then I went and I was just hanging out, and there were four people in the room. I remember it very clearly. There were four people in this room the whole time we were there. And I was like, man, like four people, like, man, I've made a complete fool of myself in front of way more than four people. So why not? Like why not? Like let's just put my name on the list and play a song. Like screw it, man. What do you have to
Mm,
lose?
yeah.
And so I went up there and I played Should Have Been a Cowboy. It's the first song I ever learned how to play.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, in that moment, I in that moment, I knew that that's what I wanted to do forever. It was like the stage became a sanctuary. It's that all of that escape and that sense of peace and everything. It was there, but it was magnified 100 times on that stage. And
Mm.
I knew that this is what I needed to do forever. And, I was able to when I would go to open mic nights after that, I went to open mic nights all the time. Every other weekend, I was at an open mic night because for 3 minutes at a time, the PTSD, the depression, the anxiety, it all disappeared. And I
Yeah.
was able to live in a moment on that stage for 3 minutes or 4 minutes or however long that song was. And honestly, there were probably awful performances, but for me, it didn't matter. I was there for the therapy of it. For me, I was there to be able to escape into it,
Right.
and to be able to live in a moment. And and that's kind of how it all started. And then the world started opening up again, and Nashville started opening up again. And I've made some connections at these open mic nights for people who would play down on Broadway, and they're like, man, when you're on Broadway, you play 3 to 4 hours at a time. And I was like, dude, what? Like 3 to 4 hours at a time, like, I get to escape for 3 minutes at a time here at an open mic night. Like, I would love to escape 3 to 4 hours a day. Like, that's just amazing. Like, let's do that. So, I walked up and down Broadway for a month until people started letting me on stage, and, I bugged the crap out of them until finally they were like, "All right, man, geez, just go up on stage, whatever." And, and then finally, I made it to the point where I was playing 6 nights a week down on Broadway, and I lived, my vocal cords hated me.
Yeah.
Um, but I lived for those 3 to 4 hours a day where I could just completely escape and live in a moment. And, for someone who suffers from PTSD and depression and anxiety, it's so hard to live in a moment. It's so hard to not think about being over in Afghanistan and thinking about my best friends that never came home. Like, it's so hard to not live in that moment. So when I can find something that takes me out of that and lets me truly see what's around me, like that was magic. And that's kind of what sold me on wanting to be on a stage as much as possible.
Yeah. So what are your shows like now? I mean, is it just you up there playing and kind of forgetting about all the other things that are going on in your head? And, like, do you like tune out the audience, or are you, interactive with them? And
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I love being interactive with the audience. I mean, for me, of course, being on stage will always be a therapy. It will
yeah,
always when you come to a show, you're watching therapy happen in person. Like, it is happening right there. But no, I love interacting with audiences. I love taking them on a journey with me. A lot of my shows, talk about what happened to me, and they talk about the things that I deal with, and but they're fun, and I get people. I love interacting with people, and I love getting them excited. And I'll sing covers that everyone knows and loves just so they can scream it out loud with me.
yeah,
I mean, it's it's incredible, and it's so fun. And I just hope that with the platform that I have now, that I'm able to help someone in some way, shape, or form, the way that I was able to find music. I mean, music saved my life. It truly did. And I hope that I'm able, either with my story or someone seeing me up on stage, I'm able to show them that you don't have to be defined by the bad. You can be that you can do so much more. Like, if you would have asked me 5 years ago or right after I got shot if I'd be playing music, I would have laughed at you.
yeah,
Like, there's no way. And here I am. Like, I'm doing something that I never thought I would ever do or that would even be possible. And I hope someone somewhere hears that and takes that and runs with it and realizes that they can do so much more. If I can be up there playing music, there's nothing that they can't do.
right, right. Do you get a lot of feedback from your fans about, things that they've been through, and stories that, just stories that they tell you about stuff that they've
Yeah,
been through?
yeah, absolutely. 100%, and the most amazing part about it is I'll get veterans that reach out to me, of course, all the time.
Mhm.
But now I get people who are just struggling, not even veterans, just people who are struggling.
Yeah,
And they get a hold of me, and they have no problem talking to me about what's going on with them and how, my story helped them some way, or a song helped them in some way, or something, and that's what this is all about. I don't, I from the very beginning, I told Black River, before I signed, you know, with them, before I signed with Black River Entertainment, I was like, man, I don't care about making a bunch of money. I don't care about being famous. Like, I just want someone to hear a song or my story or see me on stage, and for it to mean enough to them to that for it to help them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And at the day, I'm on borrowed time already, man. I don't know how I'm here. And I just hope that, with the time that I have, that I can try to do some good in some way, shape, or form.
Well, it sounds like you have the platform now to do that, and it'll be interesting to see what's next. So tell us a little bit
I
about
appreciate it.
what is next.
Yeah, we're working on some more music right now
Hmm.
for sure. We're working on some really cool stuff that I'm really excited about. We're gonna go out and play some more shows. We're trying to play more and more and more, trying to get in front of more people. I'm playing Sturgis this year, which is crazy.
Wow.
Never thought I'd say that. This last year, I played the PBS show, the Memorial Day PBS show, the
Hmm.
concert and the parade, which is there's just been so many things, and I'm like, how am I here? Like, what is going on? That was one of them. For 30 years, me and my family would sit and watch the PBS concert every year on Memorial Day, and then this year I got to be a part of it, and it was incredible. And there's been so many moments where I'm just can't believe that I get to do what I get to do, and there's just so many more moments that are coming up that are going to be the same way. Anytime I'm on a stage, I'm like, can't believe I'm here, and it's just it's amazing, man, and it's been a hell of a ride, and I'm just holding on for dear life and trying to enjoy every moment while I can.
What does your family think about your career choice and what you're doing now?
Man, it's so funny. They always all the time they're like, man, who would have thought that Scotty would be here? Like who would have thought that Scotty would be playing at the Grand Ole Opry, or Scotty was like, what the heck, man? Like, what is going on? But they're, of course they're incredibly proud of me. I just lost my dad in June, but he was one of my biggest fans, and he tried to go to every show that he possibly could. My brother tries to go to every show. My mom tries to go to every show. They're just incredibly proud, and they're just as surprised as I am that I'm where I'm at. So so it's amazing. I have an incredible support structure, and in my family and in my girlfriend and in my kids, and it's incredible.
Interesting. All right, Kat, go ahead. I know you have a couple questions.
Yeah, so before the injury,
Yeah.
what did you think life was going to be like? Like, what was your dreams and your plans for life
Yeah.
at that point?
Yeah, for a while, in high school and stuff, my dream was to be a professional baseball player, and that very quickly became not a real thing. And then, when I joined the military, that was my career choice. I wanted to be a lifer, what they call in the military. I wanted to make a career out of the military. I wanted to do 20 years in the military and then retire when I was old, and unfortunately, life had other plans.
Well, so when you're writing your songs,
Mhm.
where did the inspirations come from? Like, do you keep some kind of little notebook and you hear a phrase or something that you think, or is it a personal experience? I know you said it was a lot of therapy, therapeutic for you to get the words out that you were feeling. So how is the process for you of songwriting?
Yeah, yeah, I'm still very new at songwriting, but yeah, I take from experience. I've lived a lot of life here.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of different things, and I feel like I have good life experience going into a writing room. And one of the most amazing pieces of advice that I've ever been given when it comes to writing rooms is, I Doug Johnson, an incredible songwriter. He wrote Three Wooden Crosses. He without a doubt he has written songs that will live forever. He always told me, when you walk into that room, write the song that room gives you that day. Don't go in there and try to force something if it doesn't feel right. If it doesn't work, then move on to something that does. And that's been the best advice that I've been given songwriting wise ever. I mean, it's just, you walk into a room, and when you write with what that room gives you that day, you're writing from experience from that day a lot of times, or you're writing from experience from your life or from someone else's life, or and yeah, I mean, I keep the notebook, I keep the notes on my phone of little random things that I hear that I'm like, oh, that'd be a good song, you know. But a lot of it is just walking into a room and just writing whatever feels right that day.
Do you feel like the songs kind of choose you rather? I mean, it kind of sounds like that, being open to the room and what the message is for that day. Do you feel like you're just a medium for, the song that needs to come out?
Yeah, sometimes I do. Absolutely. There are definitely sometimes when I write a song in a room and I'm like, where the hell did that song come from? And it's just there are definitely times when, I'm just feeling a certain way and just songs come from it. I mean, there's a song called How Do You Choose that I wrote that was a song about my best friend being killed in Afghanistan and the survivor's guilt that comes from that. And that was the first song that we ever released on Black River with Black River. And that song was a song that I walked into a room and I didn't want to write that song. And I kept getting pushed by my buddy, Jesse Wayne Taylor, to write something that matters. And he was like, dude, you need to do this. You need to do this. And I am so glad that I did. It was a song that I fought for the longest time, but that song chose me. I mean, we wrote that in 30 minutes. That song just flowed. And yeah, I mean, there's sometimes when you walk in that room and you struggle a little bit with what you're trying to say, and then there's other times when you walk in that room and 30 minutes later you have a song that means so much to you. And that's kind of the beauty of songwriting, right? You never know what you're going to get from that day, and I think that's one of the most amazing things about songwriting.
Do you ever write songs that are deeply personal to you, but you write them just for you and you don't want to share necessarily with anyone else?
Yes, 100%. The songs that I first wrote, the songs that I wrote as a way to kind of, empty the cup before it overflowed a little bit. No one will ever see those. They will never see the light of day. Those are strictly for me. They're strictly for just feelings and emotions that I had at that moment. There are definitely songs that I keep very close to myself, but also at the same time, like there's stuff that I'm not scared, like I will write about that a lot of people are scared to write about, like survivor's guilt. I mean, that's a very hard thing to talk about. But with what I'm trying to do with wanting to help somebody and trying to help in some way, shape, or form, I have to be a little bit transparent. I have to show them that I'm struggling too. I have to, like, even though I'm doing amazing things, even though I'm doing things that I never thought possible, that I still, from day to day, I still have days that are so much harder than others. And I want, people to understand that you can still be successful and you can still have incredible things happen and struggle.
Is it hard to be vulnerable? I mean, I imagine
Um,
you would have to
yeah,
be to deal with writing about these.
yeah, yeah. It is, it is. But I know that what I want to do outweighs the the harshness of the vulnerability to myself. I know that what I want to do with my story and my music and wanting to help somebody means more than the vulnerability that I'm going to feel in that moment. I think that it's important to be vulnerable, and I think that it's important for people to see that are in struggle, that I've been through terrible things and that I struggle, but I've made it out on the other side, and I'm continuing to push.
So, when people hear your music or see scars, what's the
Mhm.
one message that you hope sticks with them when they, after they meet you and they hear your music?
Yeah, I hope that when someone hears my music, it gives them hope that there's more. That you can do so much more than you ever thought possible. Because Lord knows, I never thought this was going to be possible. And I hope that people see that, and I hope that is that you can do so much more. And if you have a dream, go try it, man. Like, who knows? Who knows what'll happen? And yeah, that's really what I hope someone takes away from it.
Well, if someone were to make a movie about your life, because it kind of plays out like when you've had so many experiences, that most people don't have. Have you ever thought about who you'd like to play you?
Oh God, I have no idea. Oh man, probably like, oh man, that's so good. That's a great question. Dang, you stumped me on that one.
Well,
Probably.
there could be like a lot of people to, to
Yeah,
to choose from, but I was just curious because, who knows? I mean, you never thought music, maybe you will like have a
yeah,
story about your life.
yeah. I mean, I think that what was the guy that played Chris Kyle in American Sniper?
No,
Bradley Cooper. But it would have to be like the Chris Kyle version of Bradley Cooper because we kind of look similar. So so maybe that. I think Bradley Cooper did an incredible job of getting into Chris Kyle's mind and his mindset with PTSD and with the way that it works and stuff like that. And I think that Bradley would be great.
And he can sing a little bit too, so there you go.
Hey, see, there we go. That's even a plus. There we go.
All right, so I guess my last question, if your scars could talk to us, what would they say about you?
That I never let them stop me.
Great. Well, that is certainly very inspirational and motivational, and
Thank
your story is fascinating
you. Thank you.
because I feel like we'll all go through different things, and the way that you have kept going and made like great things that you never imagined, to be possible happen is really cool.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
All right. Well, I hope that you will come back and, are you
Absolutely.
tell us, as you're going on and writing more songs and touring more, and will there be another album, or what is, the projects that you'll have in the future? I hope you'll come back and tell us all about that.
Yeah, I would love that. Absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully next time it's not fun. It's not. We don't meet the way that we did now. We're having Russ on here after putting bags over my truck door because someone broke my window out.
Jeez.
Yes. We do not want to meet under those circumstances again.
For sure.
All right,
Well,
Scotty. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the time. I really appreciate it as well.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.